Chaos and horror on a college campus. Conservative activist Charlie Kirk gunned down in front of a crowd at Utah Valley University. The state's governor calling it a political assassination.
Everyone's just scared. It's traumatizing.
I watched a fountain of blood come out of the side of his neck like a water fountain.
In September 2025, conservative activist Charlie Kirk was fatally shot during a campus event in Utah, a political assassination that sent shockwaves across America. Leaders in both parties quickly condemned the killing as an unacceptable act of political violence. President Donald Trump mourned Kirk as a great and even legendary ally and ordered flags at half-staff.
Charlie was a patriot who devoted his life to the cause of open debate and the country that he loved so much, the United States of America. He fought for liberty, democracy, justice, and the American people. He's a martyr for truth and freedom, and there's never been anyone who was so respected by youth.
But Trump also blamed the radical left for creating a climate of hate, saying their habit of likening conservatives to Nazis, quote, is directly responsible for the terrorism we're seeing in our country. While Democrats and Republicans alike called for unity and a rejection of violence, the aftermath revealed a deeply fractured society. Some on the right cast Kirk as a martyr and immediately pointed fingers at liberals. Elon Musk declared, quote, the left is the party of murder, and others echoed that this is war.
We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil. They cannot imagine what they have awakened. They cannot conceive of the army that they have arisen in all of us. Because we stand for what is good, what is virtuous, what is noble.
Meanwhile, a few voices on the left mocked Kirk's death, provoking outrage and swift rebuke. The tenor of the reaction, grief and fear mingled with partisan blame and even calls for retribution, exemplified the dangerous erosion of American democratic norms. A high-profile murder that should have united the nation in mourning instead became further fuel for its political fire.
The whole goal here is to have conversations and to make sure that people can meet in the middle to talk about the issues they care about. It's not necessary that they agree all the time, but having an open dialogue is critical. When that breaks down, that's when you get to the moment where people feel the only option is to pursue violence.
This tragic episode crystallizes many symptoms of democratic decay: surging polarization, the normalization of political violence, and an impulse to silence or punish opponents rather than seek understanding. Today, WatchMojo examines key themes in America's perceived democratic backsliding, trends that should alarm conservatives and liberals alike, and spur all citizens to defend our fragile republic.
We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Those are not the words of a mob boss in Goodfellas. Those are the words of the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. They were words of warning delivered on a right-wing podcast and aimed at the broadcasters of a late-night comedian.
Once a fringe term, cancel culture has become a mainstream concern as Americans witness an escalating cycle of punitive outrage and speech suppression across the ideological spectrum. In the wake of Kirk's assassination, for example, comments by public figures and private citizens sparked a wave of firings and suspensions.
Educators across the country are filing lawsuits alleging they were unlawfully fired for their comments about Charlie Kirk's assassination. In the complaints obtained by ABC News, plaintiffs claim their First Amendment rights were violated because the comments were made on personal social media accounts. One teacher in Iowa says she was fired for comparing Kirk to a Nazi.
Nearly 300 teachers in Texas came under investigation simply for voicing negative opinions about Kirk's politics. A comic book writer who posted a celebratory remark was promptly dropped by her publisher. Even major media personalities weren't immune. ABC suspended the late-night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel for nearly a week after he made controversial remarks about the circumstances of Kirk's assassination.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
This suspension came only hours after Brendan Carr, the Trump-appointed FCC chairman, openly threatened to revoke TV station licenses over Kimmel's remarks, a shocking precedent of government leverage to silence a critic. Free speech advocates reacted with alarm, calling it, quote, beyond McCarthyism, and warning that dissenting voices are being systematically muzzled.
going down this road, there will come a time when a Democrat wins again. Wins the White House.
They will get rid of every
Democrat
talk show host in America that's a conservative. They'll get rid of every podcast. They'll get rid of everybody on YouTube.
They will silence us. They will use this power, and they will use it ruthlessly.
Ironically, politicians who long decried cancel culture on college campuses are now wielding it as a weapon. 44th U.S. President Barack Obama noted that the current administration has taken cancel culture, quote, to a new and dangerous level.
Former President Obama called out Kimmel's show being pulled off the air, and he writes, quote, after years of complaining about cancel culture, the current administration has taken it to a new and dangerous level by routinely threatening regulatory action against media companies unless they muzzle or fire reporters and commentators it doesn't like.
This marks a stark norm shift. Once, Americans across the spectrum agreed that the remedy for bad speech was more speech. Now, both left and right often reach for the cudgel of deplatforming. Such intolerance of opposing views, whether enforced by Twitter mobs or federal regulators, corrodes the culture of open debate that democracy requires. The new norm, that those with power should punish speech they deem unacceptable, represents a dangerous abandonment of First Amendment values.
ABC and Disney tonight have good reason to brace for retribution from the president for putting Jimmy Kimmel back on the air. He's already promised it. Quoting from his social media post, "I can't believe ABC fake news gave Jimmy Kimmel his job back. The White House was told by ABC that his show was canceled." He continued with the thread, "I think we're going to test ABC out on this. Let's see how we do. Last time I went after them, they gave me $16 million.
Of course, new norms don't just fall from the sky. The rise of social media has supercharged political polarization in America, trapping citizens in echo chambers that reinforce their biases and inflame divisions. Algorithms on platforms like X, Facebook, and YouTube are designed to maximize engagement, often by promoting the most sensational and extreme content. The result is a digital landscape where partisans on both the left and right inhabit separate realities and rarely encounter dissenting views.
Is YouTube basically recommending all of us videos just to keep us hooked?
Yes, exactly. They are not even the videos that you might want to watch, but they are the best to get you addicted.
The more videos you watch, the more ads you see. That equals more money for YouTube.
It's a problem throughout, not just YouTube, but Google, Facebook, all these companies, is that they've prioritized growth over anything else.
Studies show that these online echo chambers directly contribute to radicalization. For example, far more Republicans who consume fringe outlets believe the false claim that the 2020 election was stolen than those who consume mainstream sources. Alarmingly, a significant share of Americans across party lines now agree that true patriots may have to resort to violence to save the country, a view far more common among those immersed in partisan misinformation.
In a survey of about 1,200 people conducted with Rutgers University, Horder found growing support for political violence among the younger, highly online, and ideologically left-aligned. According to their results, 56% of people who identify as left of center believe there could be some justification for killing President Donald Trump.
Social media doesn't just segregate us by ideology, it cranks up the volume of anger. As one senator put it, quote, "The algorithm in social media is always pushing who is the angriest, who is the loudest, who says the craziest thing." In the aftermath of Kirk's killing, this dynamic was on full display. Graphic video of the shooting spread virally online, and inflammatory reactions poured gasoline on the fire.
And then you see how much violence there's on the left, with our friend Charlie Kirk getting murdered in cold blood this week, and people on the left celebrating it openly. The left is the party of murder.
The collapse of a shared information sphere means we no longer agree on basic facts, undermining any possibility of compromise. With each camp sealed off in its own media ecosystem, polarization in America has deepened to a perilous degree.
When we look at people who are highly politically active on Twitter, we find that about 70% of the content about politics is generated by just 6% of people. And those 6% of people are disproportionately very liberal or very conservative. And so when we wander onto social media, we can wrongly conclude that everyone is extreme and everyone is sort of out to get everyone else.
Democratic backsliding often begins with the erosion of the rule of law, a pattern now visible in U.S. institutions. In recent years, and especially under the second Trump administration, numerous legal norms and precedents have been reversed or undermined. One stark example is the treatment of the January 6th Capitol attackers.
First, we have a list of pardons and commutations relating to events that occurred on January 6, 2021.
Okay, and how many people is this?
I think this order will apply to approximately 1,500 people, sir.
So this is January 6th. These are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon.
Yes.
Full pardon.
At the same time, the administration has aggressively expanded executive power while hollowing out institutional checks. Entire federal agencies have been gutted or shuttered, concentrating more authority directly under the president.
The Supreme Court has cleared the way for the President Trump administration to dismantle the Department of Education. Now, education advocates warn the president's plan will severely impact students in low-income communities and those with disabilities. It also promises to gut the department's workforce.
The administration has even defied court orders that struck down some of its policies, simply ignoring judicial rulings it dislikes. At the state level, we've seen institutional reversals that entrench one-party power, from extreme gerrymandering to new laws enabling legislatures to undermine local election authorities. The Supreme Court's recent decisions have rolled back long-standing rights and oversight mechanisms as well, from overturning Roe v. Wade to limiting affirmative action.
President Biden last night saying the court went too far right, adding the court has become not just conservative, but it's like a throwback. Earlier, a reporter asked Biden if the Supreme Court is a rogue court.
Is this a rogue court?
This is not a normal court.
All these reversals represent a regression from democratic norms. When a government undermines the rule of law by pardoning its loyal offenders, disempowering oversight bodies, and cherry-picking which rulings to follow, it signals a turn toward authoritarian governance.
I do not support the pardons if they were given to people who committed violent crimes, including assaulting police officers or breaking windows to get into the Capitol, or other violent acts, pepper spray, for example.
Another feature of America's democratic backsliding is pronounced backlash against diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. After the nationwide reckoning on race in 2020, many institutions pledged to become more inclusive. But in the past 2 years, a counter-movement has taken hold, seeking to roll back those gains.
DEI is unconstitutional. What did the Supreme Court say just a year or two ago? You couldn't use race as the basis in college admissions. Now, if not college admissions, why the United States military? Here's the other truth, Laura. DEI is what the elites use to stay in power because they use it to divide working people.
Conservative activists and lawmakers have aggressively attacked DEI programs as woke excess, and their efforts are yielding results. Corporate America is quietly retreating from diversity commitments under political pressure. Studies show that the share of black directors appointed to corporate boards has sharply declined since 2022, while the share of white directors has increased. Executives admit that lawsuits and public criticism have pushed DEI policies down the priority list. Republican-led states have gone further, banning DEI offices at public universities and restricting related programming.
It's definitely heartbreaking. The new state law bans diversity, equity, and inclusion offices at the University of Texas. It also takes away certain organizations, and students say it's affecting cultural graduation ceremonies. Ceremonies many students were looking forward to.
Culturally, the pushback is evident in controversies like the Bud Light boycott, corporate withdrawals from Pride sponsorships, and growing scrutiny of diversity-themed content in entertainment. Advocates warn that this retrenchment not only threatens hard-won gains in representation, but also corrodes the inclusive spirit of democracy. A society that can't tolerate diversity risks sliding toward exclusionary ideologies. The DEI backlash, driven by fears of demographic change and resentment of political correctness, has become a flashpoint in the culture wars.
It is a weaponized buzz phrase, particularly when you say DEI, that has been masterfully orchestrated to distract the American people from what's really taking place. And what's taking place is a radical redefinition of the role of government.
Democracy depends not just on institutions, but on unwritten norms of mutual respect and truth-telling. Here, too, the United States shows signs of backsliding. In recent years, political rhetoric has normalized levels of demonization once considered fringe. It's now routine for partisans to label opponents as traitors, fascists, or even subhuman, language that was rare in mainstream politics a generation ago.
I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent.
Polls show that nearly half of Americans believe members of the opposing party are downright evil. The sense that basic civility is collapsing crosses the aisle. The net effect is a public increasingly open to anti-democratic views.
That's the American way. That's how we get any type of headway in our country is through dialogue, and that's why I'm a bit upset at the conservative response when it comes to Jimmy Kimmel.
Surveys find substantial numbers of voters now condone violations of democratic norms if it punishes their rivals. Meanwhile, norms around free expression are shifting in troubling ways. Book bans in schools and libraries are at a high not seen in decades, driven by political groups seeking to silence discussions of race, history, and sexuality.
It's hard to know what is so controversial or subversive about Julianne Moore's picture book about a little girl who dislikes her freckles but learns to live with them. But it was among the books that were caught up in a compliance review by the Pentagon for their schools which serve U.S. military families.
Teachers and professors report pressure to self-censor, and academic freedom has declined amid mounting pressure to avoid controversial topics. In short, Americans' commitment to open debate, truth, and tolerance is wavering, a dangerous sign for democracy's future.
This is surprisingly, again, like Julianne Moore says, in the country of free speech, this is only the latest effort to take books off shelves in schools and libraries in the United States.
Yeah.
A hallmark of creeping authoritarianism is the consolidation of power in a single leader or party, often through the capture of independent institutions. Observers warn that the United States is experiencing this phenomenon. Since 2025, the Trump administration has undertaken a sweeping effort to concentrate authority and eliminate sources of opposition within the government.
Well, the Supreme Court will consider expanding President Trump's power to shape independent agencies. The High Court agreed to quickly hear arguments in a case over the firing of members of the Federal Trade Commission and 2 other boards. A 1935 decision found commissioners can be removed only for misconduct or neglect of duty.
Federal agencies that once operated with autonomy have been restructured or abolished outright. In just the first year of Trump's second term, entire departments were shuttered, and tens of thousands of civil servants laid off, ostensibly in the name of efficiency, but in practice, removing professionals deemed disloyal. The Department of Justice and FBI have seen an exodus of officials amid reports of political interference in cases involving Trump's allies and adversaries.
Denise Chung's resignation comes one day after President Trump formally nominated Ed Martin as U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. That's the office that was in charge of most of the January 6th prosecutions. Martin has defended numerous January 6th defendants and has said he would investigate anyone who tried to interfere with Elon Musk's work at the Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE.
The White House has even refused to comply with multiple court orders that struck down its policies. At the state level, power consolidation is evident in gerrymandering, the stripping of powers from opposition officials, and the capture of election administration. Conservative groups have openly advanced blueprints calling for sweeping presidential control of the bureaucracy, with critics warning these plans amount to a roadmap to autocracy. All these signs, purges of the bureaucracy, defiance of courts, militarization of domestic affairs, and the subordination of once neutral agencies, point to an America whose institutions are being bent to serve the will of a single faction.
And we continue to follow our breaking news. Just a short time ago, President Trump announcing on Truth Social that he is sending troops to Portland, Oregon to protect ICE facilities. Now, Portland is just the latest Democratic-run city that the president has either sent or threatened to send troops to in his growing crackdown on immigration and on crime.
Perhaps nothing is more corrosive to a democracy than citizens losing faith that their votes count and that their institutions are legitimate. In the United States, trust in elections and government has eroded to crisis levels. After the 2020 election, the big lie that the vote was stolen spread widely. By late 2021, 2/3 of Republicans believed Joe Biden's win was illegitimate.
These precautions come after Trump supporters, some armed, have been gathering outside of election offices across the country and right here in Las Vegas. This makes the second night that Trump supporters rallied outside of the Clark County Elections Office. They claim fake ballots are being delivered and counted.
That baseless belief fueled the January 6th insurrection and continues to fester. President Trump's ongoing campaign to overturn results has stoked mistrust that'll reverberate for years. Across the country, experienced nonpartisan election administrators have been quitting in droves after facing death threats and intimidation. They're often being replaced by partisan actors, eroding public confidence that future results will be fair.
In recent days, the Justice Department has sued 8 states to compel them to share their voter registration lists with the federal government. Those lists include voters' personal data, like dates of birth and social security numbers. State officials oppose the move because of concerns about how the information will be used. That comes as President Trump continues to target election systems, including mail-in ballots.
At the same time, many Democrats have grown distrustful of the Supreme Court, which they see as politicized after controversial appointments and rulings. Overall trust in the federal government remains near historic lows, and a majority of Americans now say democracy is under threat. When citizens can't trust that losers will accept defeat and that power will transfer peacefully, democracy is in peril. The normalization of rejecting any election one doesn't win is perhaps the gravest legacy of the past few years.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with President Erdogan of Turkey, and we've been friends for a long time, actually, even for 4 years when I was in exile, unfairly, as it turns out. Rigged election, he knows about rigged elections better than anybody.
Political violence, once unthinkable in contemporary American life, is increasingly regarded as a grim new normal. The assassination of Charlie Kirk stands as a stark example, but it's sadly not an isolated incident. In June 2025, former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were gunned down in their home by an assailant motivated by political hatred.
Speaker Hortman was someone who served the people of Minnesota with grace, compassion, humor, and a sense of service. She was a formidable public servant, a fixture and a giant in Minnesota. She woke up every day determined to make this state a better place.
This horrifying plot underscores that violence is manifesting on both ends of the spectrum. The common thread is the steady destigmatization of political violence. Surveys confirm that a substantial minority of Americans now condone violence against the other side. Such views were once relegated to the fringe. Today, they're voiced openly at political rallies and on social media.
In national headlines, President Trump signed an executive order Thursday targeting domestic terrorism networks and organized political violence. Trump saying the order will work to tackle, quote, anarchists from the left and the groups funding them. The announcement comes a day after that deadly attack at an ICE facility in Dallas, Texas.
Militant rhetoric has seeped into mainstream politics. Influencers respond to Kirk's death by declaring we're at war in this country and urging supporters to prepare for combat. The line between metaphorical fights and literal ones is blurring.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband attacked with a hammer inside of their San Francisco home. Paul Pelosi is recovering tonight. He had skull surgery after he was badly hurt in that attack this morning. Now, Speaker Nancy Pelosi rushed back to San Francisco from Washington, D.C. You see her there, Chopper 5.
Incidents of violence and intimidation are on the rise. Armed militias marching at protests, threats toward election workers, attempted kidnappings of officials, the January 6th insurrection, the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband. The list lengthens each year. Once violence occurs, it tends to spawn retaliatory threats, creating a cycle of escalation. If political violence becomes normalized as a mode of expression, the very essence of democracy, peaceful contest for power, will be negated.
We do know that Paul Pelosi was hit with that hammer multiple times. At least one of those blows was severe. Mr. Pelosi taken to the city's only level 1 trauma center, where doctors say they successfully repaired a skull fracture and treated less severe injuries to his right arm and to his hand.
One of the subtler yet pivotal drivers of America's democratic backsliding is the fragmentation of the media landscape and the loss of a common reality. In the mid-20th century, Americans got their news from a few shared sources, which helped anchor debate in agreed-upon facts. Today, that information consensus has splintered.
Right, if you're a young guy who's interested in fitness and kind of vaguely interested in the news, you're getting your news from the Musketeers, right? A little bit on X, probably listen to Joe Rogan, might be listening to Huberman podcast on longevity and health.
Conservatives tune into Fox, OAN, Newsmax, or a constellation of online influencers, while liberals follow MSNBC, NPR, or progressive outlets, with minimal overlap. Citizens literally don't hear the same news. Each side lives under its own filter bubble, often with wildly different narratives about events. The effect is profound. Without shared facts, good faith deliberation becomes nearly impossible. Beyond cable networks, the rise of social media has flooded the zone with misinformation. False stories and conspiracy theories spread faster than fact checks.
I wish I was a cop. I'd sit in a room like, this story is horseshit. Like, none of these things make any sense to me. Like, you're telling me that this kid who's not military trained, this guy, first of all, how did he get to the roof? How come nobody was looking? How come nobody was like, there's a direct line of sight between where he's sitting and those roofs? You guys didn't check? You don't have a drone?
Within hours of Kirk's shooting, conspiracy theories trended online, claiming it was a false flag, claims unfounded but widely believed in partisan communities. The decline of local journalism has further eroded common reference points. Into that void stepped national outlets and Facebook groups that focus on wedge issues. The nationalization of the media drives Americans further apart.
Facing deep financial troubles, News Media Corp has decided to shut down 23 news operations, 6 in Wyoming, 7 in Illinois, 5 in Arizona, 4 in South Dakota, and 1 in Nebraska. The closures by the Illinois-based company are just the latest in a trend, contributing to growing news deserts in rural America.
Unlike countries with strong public broadcasters, the US system incentivizes outrage and niche targeting. The result is what some call the post-truth era, where objective reality is contested. When citizens can't even agree on basic facts, the basis for democracy erodes.
Reports, rumors, and misinformation spread online. False information about whether he had died, who the suspect was, what the potential motive was. All of that were huge topics of discussion, even though there was no concrete information available at the time.
Finally, America's democratic backsliding is exacerbated by a younger generation that feels increasingly alienated from the system. Polling finds that millennials and Gen Z are more disillusioned with democracy than any cohort in living memory. Globally, only 57% of people aged 18 to 35 say democracy is always preferable to other forms of government.
We are at a time in our politics, unfortunately, where it's very divisive, where it's very hateful, where we have extremes on both sides, and we're really not talking about, okay, you know, the beauty of America is that our differences is what makes us the United States.
In the United States, about 1/4 of young adults have a favorable view of military government, and nearly half agree that a strong leader who doesn't bother with elections might be a good idea. These startling views reflect deep frustration. Young Americans say traditional politics has failed to address issues that they care about most. From climate change to student debt to social justice, many feel their voices are ignored by elected leaders, and youth voter turnout remains the lowest of any age group.
One of the reasons why President Trump won the White House is younger voters put him in the White House. President Donald Trump was unafraid to go on social media, and he dominated on TikTok. He was unafraid to go on podcasts. And the younger generation, one of the main reasons they supported President Trump, they want to be able to own homes, they want to have kids, they want to get married, they want their slice of the American dream. I think President Trump is going to deliver for them.
Beyond voting, fewer young Americans participate in civic organizations or even follow political news. They often seek change outside formal institutions, through protests, social media, or community projects, rather than through government. There is a silver lining. Young people haven't given up on values like freedom and justice, but they doubt the current political system can deliver them. Yet, disengagement can become a vicious cycle, weakening democracy further. If fresh generations don't invest in institutions, those institutions age and atrophy. a society where the young lose faith in democracy could slip into authoritarianism by default.
There's always a lesser of two evils, and the things that he stands for are better than the things that Kamala stands for.
According to NBC News exit polls, among first-time voters, Trump carried 56%. That's a 24% bump from the last election. For first-time voting men, Trump's share jumped to 63%. And while Harris underperformed with voters under 30, Trump gained compared to 2020.
The picture painted by the trends we've outlined is undeniably sobering. America finds itself at a crossroads. The guardrails of its republic are straining, and the very habits that sustain self-government, tolerance, truthfulness, compromise, are under attack. Yet recognizing these warning signs is the first step toward countering them.
Maybe most of all, I want to thank the people who don't support my show and what I believe, but support my right to share those beliefs anyway. People who I never would have imagined.
Across the political spectrum, voices of conscience are calling for vigilance. In 2023, the nonpartisan centers of U.S. presidents from Hoover to Obama issued a joint message, urging Americans to renew our commitment to rule of law, civility in discourse, respect for institutions, and secure elections. This remarkable statement underscores that the preservation of democracy is common cause. Whether conservative, liberal, or independent, the erosion of democratic norms, be it cancel culture censorship, violent rhetoric, institutional power grabs, or election subversion, ultimately imperils everyone's freedom.
I don't think the murderer who shot Charlie Kirk represents anyone. This was a sick person who believed violence was a solution, and it isn't. Ever.